That tape to use is something to use on a regular basis.
Well, there you go. There aren't too many dark grey and black cars, and the Dams caddy had to be the best choice. That's Marc Goosens, and the Belgian, who went off in the gravel up at the first corner, has now gone off subsequently at Arnage. So from one of the fastest to pretty much the slowest corner. And that's a dreadful sight for Martin Brundle.
Fire for Brundle.
The number 7 car, Guy Smith, bails out as smoke envelops the cockpit. The back of the car is well ablaze there under the bodywork. Guy won't necessarily be able to see that, but he'll certainly know. You can see it there. It's well alight, and I would have to say that's probably an oil line or a turbo failure, and that is... Well, he'll pull the extinguisher, but those marshals, or that marshal with his extinguisher, needs to get in there, under the body, and Guy Smith will walk away. And Martin Brundle, another Le Mans hope for victory, goes up literally in smoke. Well, what a disappointment for the Bentley boys. That car was in a strong position, leading the race early on. They were still well in the top 10. 4 laps down on the leaders with their electronics problems that had stopped the gearbox working effectively, but they were battling on and hoping desperately that the weather would improve, and with it perhaps their fortunes. Well, Brundle and Guy Smith done a very strong job in that car, and a very, very disappointing moment, not just for the team but for the British fans as well. Stefan Ortelli, he's done his part too. But I think now there's nothing that can be done for the number 7 machine.
But they have come out of all this in glory, of course. They led the race, David, and that's what people are going to remember who've been at Le Mans this year.
They've done a fantastic job. This is their first year back at Le Mans for, for however long it was. And to go out there, lead the race as they did for quite a while. For a long time there, Martin was in the lead. And he's done a superb job, and the car has done, everything they could possibly have asked for it. And then all of a sudden, something out of the ordinary, not something you expect, has caused them to retire.
Now, it's a shame, I think, perhaps, that he's not on the radio, Guy. If he was still plugged into the radio in some way, shape or form, the team might perhaps suggest to him getting back in. He's only at the exit to the Dunlop curves there. That's between the, well, not the exit, but he's in the straight between the 2 left-handers, the Dunlop curves, I think, there. And if there's anything that can possibly get the car going, he might be in a position to be able to drive it or crawl it somehow back to the pits. It's less than half a mile from that distance, and maybe if they've extinguished whatever the fire is, even if it's lost 1 bank in cylinders or 1 turbo or something like that, unless it's destroyed the gearbox, there is perhaps the chance of firing the car up and somehow chugging it back. I mean, when the smoke dies down, it might be worth his time trying to get into the car and give it another go. We saw what Therian could do with well, nothing in front of the windscreen effectively apart from the engine on his car. So if it would fire up, maybe Guy'd get a chance to get it back, and perhaps, who knows.
It would be very difficult, but if you're looking at the fire, it was certainly on one side, so we'd reckon it'd be a turbo fire. So if you start to fire it up again, then you've got exactly the same thing happening. You would have the oil should be going around the turbo, going straight back on fire again. And I don't reckon you get very far before he would have the same problem again, and you really don't want to be sitting in a racing car when it's on fire. He did the right thing without doubt, was to hop out of there and leave it to the marshals and let them use the fire extinguisher to put it out.
See, now, if he could find a couple of little pairs of crimping pliers, lying in the grass there down by the wall, just casually lost by some camper or mechanic or something, and stem the oil flow, then maybe things might be different. In we see Marc Goosens, the Belgian, bringing the number 5 car in, and we've been joined by a very moist and sweaty Stephen Day, who has come in from the PK portion. Now, we saw this car earlier on in the race, leading in the GT category, and Stephen's got a very nice looking chocolate brownie, and I think we'll have to have that off him because we haven't had much in the way of food up here yet. Stephen, tell us about your stint. You've just finished. It looks pretty snotty out there. The reality of it is that
it was a nightmare. It's probably the worst stint I've ever done in my life. I did a lap on slicks, and it was dreadful. But the conditions, it looks like it's getting a little bit better, but very, very difficult, and a lot of cars going off.
Which presumably obviously means a lot of cars coming back on, lots more gravel, even less grip in the corners. I mean, how little of a racing line is there out there now for you guys?
But there isn't a racing line at all at the moment. I mean, everywhere has got some gravel, bits of car. It's just that also when the prototypes go past you, you just cannot see a thing. So it's pretty nasty at the moment.
I think that probably the nearest anybody who drives a normal road car can imagine to how blinding it is if you're on a very wet motorway and you try and pass 2 trucks who are in the middle and the left-hand lane. When it all goes white, that's the kind of thing you're dealing with. At what kind of speeds?